Hello, killer clowns from outer space. Welcome to the June edition of Manos at the Movies, where I take a movie that I don't hear people talk enough about, and I talk about it. I think you should recommend it to your friends, watch it yourself, get a look at it. Mainly, I'm going to be talking about films that are a little older. I will be talking about new films as well, but I love a lot of films from the 60s and 70s. I'll be talking about them, including this one. This is from 1972. This is from Hammer Studios. If you're not too familiar with Hammer Studios, they are a London movie studio that specializes in horror. They really got their start with the horror of Dracula and Peter Cushing's Frankenstein series. They ran pretty much up until the late 70s. They've had a recent comeback with the Let Me In film and the Daniel Radcliffe horror film, The Woman in Black, where they're really, really fun movies. They started out with kind of the classic characters, Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy, and then they eventually went on and kind of developed and started doing their own things. Now, they're mostly known for basically being blood and tits, especially in the later films. But I think it maybe is selling them short when you just think of their films in such a way. They really did develop the genre, and when the Universal series of films kind of just ran their course, they picked up the ball, especially with the classic ones in the original, and just brushed off the dust and added a new coat of blood on them, and they've attracted audiences ever since. Christopher Lee, of course, is one of the more popular Draculas, and that's a result. This film, like I mentioned, is sort of a transitional film, where during the late 60s and early 70s, Hammer was kind of experimenting, doing all sorts of things. They even did a sci-fi film, and they wanted to do a vampire film that wasn't Dracula-related. They even did a kung fu Dracula film. This film combines two horrifying just examples of evil. This film is Vampire Circus. This is from 1972, as I mentioned. It's directed by Robert Young, and it has not a huge known cast, at least in this country during this time. It stars Adrienne Corey as Gypsy Woman, Robert Taman as Count Metterhaus, Layla Ward as Helga, Anthony Higgins as Emil, and David Prowse as the Strongman. Yeah, that David Prowse. The same David Prowse that trained Christopher Reeve for Superman, and oh, by the way, was Darth Vader in the original trilogy. By the way, here's a cool fun fact about Layla Ward. She plays one of the vampires in the movie. I'll get to her in a few minutes. This is something really cool. She not only was a companion of the Tom Baker Doctor during his run, she was also married to Tom Baker for a few years. And unfortunately, they divorced, as a lot of marriages go, and her second husband is Richard Dawkins. Yeah, the scientist. And you won't believe who introduced them. Douglas Adams. Yeah, she has plenty of geek cred. I would be even tempted to call her geek royalty. Now, what's this film about? I don't know. Let's talk about it. It essentially starts in a small German town where there are apparently children disappearing here and there. Now, when I watched this film, and I was watching the first sequence, I happened to think about, in real life, when they were starting legends of vampires and werewolves and such like that. They were probably victims of serial killers, and we just didn't understand that. So that's probably where a lot of these legends began. It's like, hey, people wouldn't kill people. It's got to be some weird demon thing, obviously. Let's make that up. But in this film, children are disappearing. They're being lured by a woman who apparently is the wife of an important guy in the town. And she brings them to her vampire count boyfriend, Count Metterhaus, and he eats them, and then they have celebratory sex. They're an awesome couple. Anyway, he doesn't make her into a vampire. I think probably because is more advantageous to lure people into his lair. Anyway, the town figures this out and riots and attacks, actually killing him, staking him through the heart in a pretty bloody battle. They also banish the wife. They don't put her to death or put her up on charges or put her on trial. They just banish her. I guess at the right time. At the time, it probably seemed like the right thing to do. Well, as he is dying, in his dying breath, he is swearing revenge. Someday, he will come back somehow, cursing them and their children. Revenge for killing their children in the first place. Well, his priorities really aren't that great. He's a vampire. Well, about around 20 years later, there is some sort of plague going on and has people really spooked. The Burgermeister is having a meeting between himself and some of the town leaders, including the doctor, who's going, no, this is not a vampire curse. People are legitimately sick. If I can get out of town and get to where I can buy some medicine, I can bring it back. See, the problem is, the country has apparently written this town off. They're so scared of the disease, they've actually put snipers at the various entrances of the town, blocking people from going into the town and shooting people trying to get out. So, the doctor does escape early in the film, thanks to his son, and a pretty cool sequence, by the way. Letting you know how serious this is. I mean, you take one step out of this town, they will shoot your ass. Now, while he's gone, a circus comes to town. A band of circus with animals and clowns and dwarves and, led by a gypsy woman and dancers and all sorts of, crazy stuff and a couple of, caravans. And the town wonders, like, hey, how'd these guys get through? And they claim to have snuck in, and they've heard about their plight, and they thought they could at least entertain this village and bring a little life and spirit back into the town. Which, yeah, everybody's a little suspicious, but, they can't help. The town is just so depressed. They will, take this show. And what a show it is. They have animals, they have jugglers and clowns. They have a naked tiger woman dancing around very provocatively, for the kids. But there are several people who are somewhat creepy. There's the creepy clown dwarf, and as well as Emil, who is apparently a shape-shifting panther guy. Nothing suspicious there. Well, anyway, of course, the town starts losing a few people here, and suspicion starts to build as to, what's going on. There's some people wondering, are they just killing us? Are they part of the vampire's curse of revenge? Well, yeah, they're part of the vampire's curse of revenge. Adrienne Corey plays the gypsy woman. She was the wife that abandoned the town years ago and was banished, I should say. She is back for revenge and in hopes of bringing her beloved Count Medahos back to life. What a cool film. First off, Robert Taman, who plays the Count, he sort of bookends this story. He is very effective. He is quite 70s in his creepy vampire Germanness. He is quite good. Adrienne Corey also is very provocative as the gypsy woman. Layla Ward, who has a small part as one of the vampires, she is quite good in this movie and quite creepy in a couple of scenes. She has this wonderful angelic-like smile that she uses to great effect when she's about to kill people. And, of course, David Prowse is a lot of fun as the strong man. Now, this film, like I mentioned, had some nudity, and it's actually one of the biggest films of the Hammer period that had quite a bit of nudity. There's also some other films too. I may be talking about on this series as well. But yeah, there's quite a blood, there's decapitations, and also I will say, children are killed on camera in this movie by vampires. There's, of course, lots of suggestion of vampires killing children in the past in lots of movies. But this one goes ahead and shows it. This film really, really has a lot of balls, actually, and isn't afraid to, to just go for it. And in terms of the sexual scenes and the violence in this movie, where you do wonder, like, even though kind of like, well, this circus is obviously a band of evil vampires because it's called Vampire Circus, but you still kind of find yourself falling for the film. Now, maybe it could have been more mysterious if they had called it something else, but come on, you're not going to get butts in seats with a title not Vampire Circus. I mean, come on, we have to, attract the folks. And plus, I gotta admit, it's an awesome title. I highly recommend this film if you can find it on Netflix or if there's a video store in your local area. Check it out, see if you can find it. Now, I am going to be doing another Manos at the Movies, and next month. And I'm not going to talk too much about it, but here's a big hint. It's a film directed and starring a certain other YouTuber. See you in 30.